Welcome to BizTech's Enterprise Technology Show. Now, where we feature tech companies that are innovating in the large enterprise space. Now, our featured company today is Tookitaki, a cloud-based anti-money laundering transaction monitoring software provider. Now, here to tell us more is Abhishek Chatterjee. He's the founder and CEO of Tookitaki. Now, Abhishek, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me to the show. Really appreciate this, and I really look forward to this conversation.
Now, Abhishek, start by telling us what do you guys actually do and what does Tookitaki mean?
It's a very good conversation starter. Tukitaki means hide and seek in my language. I come
Okay.
from a place.
Bengali, is it?
Yes, it's Bengali hide and seek. So
Okay.
essentially, Tukitaki tries to figure out hidden pattern in noise and data. So Tukitaki is essentially one of the world's most advanced platform to detect and prevent financial crime. We all know that almost $2 trillion is laundered every year, and financial institutions spend about 180 to $200 billion to put in controls. But sadly, only 2% of this money is actually tracked. Moreover, if you see last year and this year, the fines that financial institutions are getting has almost doubled to $16 billion. This is exactly the problem Tokitaki is helping solve financial institutions. We are using machine learning and AI and providing financial institutions the comfort to detect and prevent money laundering.
Okay. So, Abhishek, before we drill down into the specifics of what you do and the products and services that you offer, what inspired you to start this business with your co-founder in 2014 in Singapore?
It's a great question. So, I come from a background where I was part of JP Morgan's trading desk in New York. And as part of my journey, I really looked into how compliance looks at various behaviors of trading activities, how actually money sort of is flowing through in these activities without being really checking the financial crime aspect of it. This, I believe, was a humongous problem, not only from a business point of view, but also from a social and human point of view, because money laundering is actually catering one of the world's most evil activities that you can think about. This actually made me think about what I wanted to do, and hence wanted to use my background and technology to actually solve this problem in a scalable way than what it was solved. That sort of inspired me to start Tokitaki, using my background in both finance and engineering to build something more meaningful. And that's when Tokitaki started.
Okay. And so what kind of customers do you target?
So we essentially helps financial institutions to prevent money laundering. This could be on 2 points. One, we help banks to detect and prevent money laundering. Also, now we are helping the neobanks and the payment processors who also would be needing anti-money laundering checks to get those regulatory compliance licenses to enter into new lines of business. These
Okay.
are the market that we target.
And with all these emerging other fintechs that are offering financial services solutions and also non-bank financial institutions that are going to be offering, that's potentially a huge white space that you are also looking at in terms of your solutions. Am I correct?
Absolutely. So initially we started with just the financial institutions, which are banks. But now what we are seeing is non-banks are also sort of offering financial products, buy now, pay later, and various sorts of products that are being offered. Now, it is almost regulatory mandated to have a financial crime check for launching those products. And that's the white space that we are entering now.
Okay. And where are your key markets? You started off in Singapore, but you've got offices in India and the US. But where are your markets? Where are your key markets in terms of sales?
We also have offices not only in US, Singapore, and India, but also UK as well. We just started our office literally 2 months back, and we are growing the team there as well. Our core markets essentially is certain areas in the Asian markets, Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan. We corely focus in the North American markets, especially in the US and Canada. And in the European market, we focus on UK and France.
And what is your go-to-market strategy? Is it a direct model or do you work with partners?
Um, we for specific market we have specific GTM strategies
Okay.
depending on how we are present. For Asia, it's our home market. We have our direct sales team. US, we also have a team there, and it's direct. Europe is mostly through GTM through our channel programs.
Okay. Now, give us an example of, you've just announced a partnership with HP. So talk about go-to-market strategy. Tell us more about that.
So the way it works is that financial crime is a board level mandate in a financial institutions. Recently, what has happened is that at a board level, it is being mandated that financial crime to be looked in a certain way, which basically means that it is getting more difficult for financial institutions to work with early stage companies because of the mandate that is coming up. So we are partnering with both SI vendors, hardware vendors, OEM vendors to sort of
Mhm.
create a full stack solution, being able to utilize their entire balance sheet to provide a solution that can give the financial institutions the comfort that when they're onboarding one of the most advanced solution, but they're also getting the support from a large channel partner so that they can deploy this solution with the thought process that this would be stable, scalable, and most advanced. That's
Okay.
why the partnership is important for us.
So let me understand. So an average person, how regulatory compliance technology or RegTech helps banks to identify and mitigate potential money laundering activities? Could you give, without getting too granular, could you give us specific examples of how your software helps your customers?
So let's like take it this way, right? Our software helps financial institutions. Now, when the financial institutions deploy our software, that actually helps their customers as well. So let us give a example. I'm sure you heard about the new sort of scams that comes up, love scams and money mule scams and all these scams, right?
Mhm.
This potentially is impacting the customers of the banks that deploy our solution, because when people get into a fraud activity or they sort of lose their money, that's when the banks lose reputation. So using tools like Tookitaki regulatory compliant tools, they make sure that these set of activities, scams, financial crime, money mule, are prevented, which in turn will help the bank not from commercially, but also making sure that they are able to provide strong support from a regulatory perspective, thereby helping the whole ecosystem. That's
Okay.
how we help banks and the banks help their customers.
Okay, and then also one of the things is regulatory technology helps really to reduce the amount of manual screening processes, isn't it? And I suppose then because of AI and machine learning and stuff, you basically are able to give the banks a higher degree of accuracy and efficiency on processing this sort of transactions. Am I correct?
Yes. So the benefit of our software is twofold. Number one, it provides the risk coverage that at board level required, so that when regulators come in, they don't sort of you know point at the board that they're not putting the right control. So that's a risk coverage which I talked about,
Okay.
financial fraud, scams. On the other side, there is also operational efficiency benefit that they can get. For instance, banks are spending or financial institutions are spending $200 billion putting in controls, which you mentioned, lot of alerts, lot of manual processes.
Yeah.
When you deploy a technology like Tukitaki, which improves the risk coverage, but it also improves their efficiency. How do we do that? We essentially look at those alerts using machine learning. We really understand whether those alerts are meaningful or not, and then guide the bank's operational team to only focus on the ones which are relevant and sort of not look at the ones which are, false alerts, thereby improving the efficiency by almost 3 to 4x in their overall time.
It's more an exception. So you only allow the manual intervention for exceptions.
We allow manual interventions for the ones which are suspicious and needs to be looked at.
Okay. Now, give us an example. I think I remember as part of the research for this interview, reading about your partnership, one of your key clients, which is UOB. Could you give us some highlights of what sort of projects that you've done with them and what have been the successful outcomes?
Right. So essentially, as I said, right, what Tookitaki technology, which is one of the most advanced AI platform to fight financial crime, was onboarded by EOB to do two things. Number one, they onboarded to sort of make sure that the suspicious cases can be detected much better than what they have. And number two, the huge amounts of false alerts that you talked about can be managed so that they can get operational efficiency out of the process. Just 2 months back, in March, UOB won the prestigious Celent Model Award, which is sort of a global award given to institutions who have really deployed cutting edge AI and showed value. This was done when UOB actually announced business live of our tool over 1 year of testing. And what we showcased there was almost 30-40% improvement in efficiency in these false alerts so that they can focus on the real, suspicious cases. But also we were able to detect 96 percentages of the true positives or the real cases, which otherwise would have completely missed out. So improve the risk coverage, reduced lot of operational waste and improve that efficiency, and then allowing the bank to really set up very strong AML controls. That's why the bank actually won the prestigious Celent Model Award after they went into production in November 2020.
Okay, sounds good. Now, let's get a bit macro and give us your insights in terms of some key new trends of financial crime. The criminals are getting cleverer and cleverer. Now, just share with us in the last year or so, particularly as a result of the pandemic, what are the interesting, or I wouldn't say interesting, but the scary new deviations of financial crimes that have cropped up?
Right. So I think two things have really propped up in the COVID situation, and it's very scary as well as almost depressing as well. As we know that the COVID situation caused a lot of unemployment, a lot of hardship among families. The bad guys or the criminals are trying to utilize on that in a big way. So what they're doing now is they are employing these people who might be unemployed or who might have lost their job on quick money scams. What they're saying is that, hey, I can, sort of send, $100 to your account. I'll give you like $5 on that. Why don't you take that money and then send it to another account? In this way, the criminals are washing out their black money through these, accounts, which are legitimate accounts, but going through some hardships. This is a concept called as money mule. This we are seeing a
So this is electronic money mule, because the money mule I would think of is the traditional money mule is the guy goes to the different bank accounts and puts in, so if the threshold is 10,000, you go in and deposit 9,990, and then you go to do that to multiple banks.
Yes. So this is a digital money mule activity which has come up where people are being employed to sort of digitally send money, small amounts of money, so that it does not trigger any red flag in the banks to specific accounts and specific counterparties. And if you look at the volume of incoming, outgoing to specific counterparties in specific region of the world, that is alarmingly high. And they never get detected because these are small number of money, but because of the COVID situation, they can employ large amount of people. So large amount of people, small money comes out to a large money that's sort of going out. That the current tools are not able to detect because it's a new pattern. And this has specifically come up during COVID time. The other one, which is dramatically that we are seeing also sort of increasing, is student mules, where we have these sort of digital banks, who doesn't require people to be actually present. So a lot of students are opening up these digital banks or neobanks. And what we are seeing also an alarming rise of money laundering through these sort of student accounts as well. So various types of money mule activity has dramatically gone up in a post-COVID situation, and the current tools are not able to handle it.
So this is a central bank's nightmare, essentially.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
And where are there any specific markets that this is happening, or is this really a global phenomenon?
It's a global phenomenon, especially across the globe in Asia and Europe, wherever the pandemic is hit very hard and the economy has affected. We are seeing a lot of fake ads which are prompting people on fake jobs, and the job is nothing but sort of transferring money from different accounts, and that's how we are seeing a significant increase of laundering happening in the post-COVID world.
Now, Abhishek, in terms of money laundering and corruption is one of the key problems that governments across the region, in fact, globally, but particularly across the region, are grappling with. How have banks, the stricter regulatory framework, especially since the 1MDB scandal, um, helped regulators manage anti-money laundering activities better? And also, of course, with the higher compliance on banks, how have they coped?
So I think there are two elements to it. The regulators all around the world are also sort of have a better understanding of the various sort of schemes of money laundering, be it tax evasion, be it money muling, be it terrorist financing. And what I've seen in this COVID situation, there has been also a much more collaboration among the regulators to really understand these sort of various modus operandis, and sharing of information has dramatically gone up. That sharing of information is now also getting percolated across the banking ecosystem, starting from a regulatory side to the banking ecosystem as well. And this is where Tookitaki sort of stands out from our competitors, because when people think about sharing, they always think about sharing customer data. No bank wants to share customer data, but everybody is open to share, information, insights of these money laundering schemes, of these
Right.
tax evasion schemes. So Tukitaki's core benefit or USP is we have a mechanism where you can share these insights seamlessly, and our machine learning sort of gets guided by those insights
Okay.
without having to worry about customer data or privacy concern related data. That's what really separates out, and that really plays well with the regulatory need as well as the current context in which we are moving towards.
Now, one more question is that from a macro level, Singapore is really become the wealth hub of Asia, particularly with money moving out of Hong Kong now, especially from China. And traditionally, of course, Singapore was started off really as the Switzerland of Asia, but essentially a lot of money has flowed into Singapore, not only from Asia, but now from the West as well. This presents a lot of anti-money laundering challenges to banks.
Absolutely.
So, how are they coping with this?
Meaning, it's a great point, because what the local regulators are trying to do is sort of update their regulations. Present white paper, ABS is taking much more active stance in that process as well, where we are seeing that specific sort of scenarios, red flags are being sort of talked about than what we would have talked about 2-3 years back. So number one, a broader sort of awareness is being brought in by the regulators, which was fairly sort of not as matured as other markets, which we are seeing now. So that's big one. Yep. Number two is, I think, especially the local regulators are really sort of asking banks to bring in tools like us, which can really sort of detect those cases than the existing system. So they're encouraging banks to use more machine learning tools to do that.
Okay.
Especially in the local scheme where, as you said, a lot of money is getting flown through. So they need new technology. So MAS and other regulators are really sort of supportive of that. And the third one, which I think is the industry, Singapore as a whole is generally perceived to be a state with a proper regulation laws. It's perceived to be a much more safe country. Hence, when financial institutions are setting up office, they're making sure that the right controls and structures are set up in place, because they know that the regulators are strict around it. So three things: regulators creating more awareness,
Okay.
regulators sort of promoting use of technology, and number three, the financial institutions taking actions knowing that the regulators are aware and regulators promote technology to prevent that. These three coming together is creating a very sort of powerful system to onboard new tools to prevent financial crime.
Now, I want to move back to Tookitaki specifically now. What sort of numbers are you doing now, right now in terms of your top line?
The exact numbers we won't be able to share publicly though.
Okay.
But what we can share is that in a pre-COVID year, we grew almost 3x year on year.
Okay.
And then, of course, in the COVID year, we sort of readjusted our top line, but this year again, we are growing 3x as well. So our
Okay.
growth has been phenomenally aggressive from the time we sort of set up and started to work with our customers. So even though we started the company in November 2014, we actually sort of started working on the product 15, 16, 17. We spent almost 2.5 years building the product.
Okay.
18 was our first year of revenue. And from there onwards, we have dramatically exponentially grown. And then now in a post-COVID world, we are again trending towards a 3x growth.
And you've raised about 20 million, just over 20 million US dollars so far. What's the plan for Tookitaki moving forward?
We raised our Series A end of 19, beginning of 20 last year. Our plan is essentially, Tokitaki has always sort of focused on the financial markets, especially the banking market. So one of our core focus area is to sort of expand the horizon of the target market that we are looking at. So that's one of our key things that we are doing. Second thing that we are doing is, we strongly believe in making sure that the products that we offer is sort of solves customers' problem. We are not into selling product features. Fundamentally, we believe that if a tool can solve a specific problem that the customer wants to do, that's what sort of gives us most, good feeling about, right? So a lot of our, direction is how can we understand our customer behavior in a post-pandemic world and make sure that the product is aligned to that need as well. Because as you would know, the consumer behavior has dramatically changed in a post-COVID world. Yeah. So product research development and market expansion are the two areas of focus going forward.
Now, you've been around since 2014, as you said, November. It took you some time to develop the product, and you, like you said, first revenues 2018. So it's been a challenge. It's been a journey. What are the key business lessons that you've learned in your entrepreneurial journey so far that you could share with other entrepreneurs and business leaders?
So the first thing that I would really want to share with entrepreneurs is that we as entrepreneurs should really know where we are and devise a strategy based on the current journey of the company. So I'll give you a real example. When we were in a journey where our revenue was supposed less than $1 million, the focus of the company, the way we think about it, would be quite different. Suppose when we are $1 million plus. Now our focus of the company will be completely different when we are 10 million plus. So as an entrepreneur, you need to really sort of accept the fact that you would need to sort of change the way you would manage your company at various stages of growth. Having a fixed mindset will not work. So as entrepreneurs, make sure that you're always sort of evolving and looking at a lens of where you are and taking decisions based on that stage. That's number one. Number two, which I call as Dogdell Paradox, which basically means that a lot of entrepreneurs, right? We have a fixed view that, hey, if we don't achieve this, then nothing happens, right? In an entrepreneurial journey, it's never a straight line, and it's all about grit. You accept what you have, but then you again use that as a learning and then go up. So as an entrepreneur, my suggestion would be Never give up, have the grit, because if you keep on having that grit, you will be successful. There is no way stopping. And the third one, which is personally my favorite, is, you need to know there would be multiple fires that would be burning. You really need to know which fire to douse and prioritize, because you will never be able to douse every fire. So prioritize and solve 2, 3 problems so that you can give your best and then move on. So knowing what not to do is super important. That's what you need to really focus on. So know your stage, be grateful, and know what not to do are the 3 broad messages that I always tell young entrepreneurs from my experience.
Abhishek, thank you very much for your sharing. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Thank you very much.
Now, I'm Brian Fernandez, and I've been speaking to Abhishek Chatterjee, founder and CEO of Tookitaki, on BizTech Enterprise Technology Show. This video will be on our Facebook and LinkedIn sites, as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. Please subscribe and like our various platforms.